Yeah, why on earth should the players have great diversity on the pitch but not the owners? It doesn't make any sense. I actually completely disagree with Claire's opinion because I think what it misses is that what football has changed. It's changed a great deal. Clubs have become assets in a portfolio of investments for mega firms. They've also become a place for or stage for global politics to be playing out, right? What that's doing, what that has done, in fact, is it's dragged clubs away, further and further away from the communities that sustain them, from the families they're part of, from the towns and the cities they're their identity of. And the only way to stand up to that, Claire, is government action. Single-use vapes are kind of a no-brainer to ban. And there's a health dimension to that, but there's also an environmental dimension to that, right? You buy these things, you smoke them and you chuck them away, and they're everywhere. And there's a sort of epidemic of single-use vaping that, to be honest, most people, I think, agree would be better off without them, right? The word nanny state, I guess, is the thing I have an issue with, because we group a range of things under this rubric of the nanny state. They're different policies. Some is tax, some is regulation, some is education, some is advertising. They work in different ways. Corporate behaviour, consumer behaviour, norms, and therefore we need to judge them differently, right? We are the sickest country in Europe. That is full stop true. We also have the greatest health inequalities in Europe. Full stop true. Some of the most effective policies we have to address this is tax and regulation, and that's why we need to take it more seriously. Look, I'm also a doctor, right? And I think vapes are absolutely critical to be available. They are probably one of the most effective smoking cessation techniques.
Are they?
They are good, right? But there's a huge difference here between types of vapes, and there's a conversation worth having, because I think the problem I have with Claire's point of view is that she's asking us to believe in a world where we are all free to do exactly what we want, completely unaffected by our surroundings, simply by strength of will, right? And that's not true. And if you're a child and you're 14, 15, 16 or 17 and your friends are smoking a vape and it's easily available and it's cheap, you're going to start smoking them too. And that's a completely different problem to Claire, a former smoker who wants to reduce the number of cigarettes she's smoking, which is great.
The Times headline, tax junk food instead of using Ozempic to solve obesity, says Lords. Now, of course, we've had a discussion recently because the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, said, well, perhaps we should be looking at weight loss drugs to tackle the incidence of obesity. House of Lords report says something different. Where are you?
So I don't like the either-or framing of this headline, right? It's either tax junk food or it's to use this new, quite impressive drug, right? We need to do both of those things. Let's just remind ourselves of what we're talking about here, because this is often framed about the NHS, and you mentioned that, there's Health Secretary mentioned this. This is about the NHS, sure, but it's about so much more than that, right? Like, I totally understand why a lawyer gets paid more than a warehouse worker, or why a member of Parliament gets paid more than their catering staff. What I don't understand is why they should get to live longer. And we have some of the widest disparities in the rich world on that account. And some of the most effective policies we have to address that is taxing unhealthy foods, taxing junk food. And that's why I think we need to take this much more seriously than we currently do. I do, and maybe as an offspring of the empire, I have a completely different view to George on this, which is, look, the Prime Minister understands the concept of a bad inheritance better than most people, right? 14 years of Tory rule when we've inherited a country in bad condition. Tell you who's had a worse inheritance, the countries we used to colonise, right? And it's worth listening to them, I think, before we say, I'm going to give you this kind of reparation and not that kind of reparation, or I'm going to focus on this and not that. Because that's the dynamic of domination that these countries are complaining about. They want a different kind of approach to this. And if you listen to them, the word reparation is broad and susceptible to interpretation. The most common interpretation you will hear from the leaders at CHOGM is about climate financing, right? What does the Prime Minister want to go there to talk about? Climate financing.
Hence my point.
Well, we're talking about them.
That's not reparations for slavery.
It's not the point, because we're saying, OK, I want to focus on the future and not the past, but the best way to remedy the past is to shape the future together. And there is no route to net zero in this world without net zero in global south countries. That's the big question no one has any answers on. Britain can be like, you know what, we're going to help you find the answers.
I agree.